Hello! Today I'm going to teach you how to do a picture that looks very similar to the DragonEye on the screen. You're going to be using colored pencil and white charcoal and the black piece of textured paper that is in your art kit. So first off, we're going to go over some color wheel information as a review. In the past, we've talked about how our colors that we're used to, our primary colors are triadic colors, and they make a triangle on the color wheel. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly make a color wheel here for us. I'm not going to press real hard. You do not need to make a color wheel. You can if you'd like. Red, blue, and my yellow. And I'm going to go ahead and apologize right now because the blue is very difficult to decipher between that and the yellow. I'm not really sure why my camera doesn't pick that up more than it does, but that's the way it is. Okay, so we have our triangle here, and then I'm going to grab my secondary colors here. I need to move that. I don't like reaching underneath the camera. Alright, so we know that when we mix red and blue together that we get purple. Some people call it violet. Either way is fine with me. Blue and yellow make green. And then red and yellow make orange. And I know we've discussed the color wheel prior to this, but we're going to add another step to it. We are going to be discussing our intermediate colors. Okay, we all know that in the center, this is where our neutrals go, our blacks and grays and browns when we mix all the colors together. Alright, so now we're going to talk about our intermediate. So we've discussed primary, and I'm just going to abbreviate for this, which is our red, blue, and yellow. Secondary, which is green, orange, and violet, or we can put a P for purple. Now we're going to talk about intermediate. And these are also known as tertiary colors. Some kids like to joke and call them third-dairy because they're the third level. Alright, so that is what happens when you mix a primary with a secondary color. So some of the colored pencils you have are already ready for you to use. For example, we could start with red-orange because we have that one already made. So I'm going to make those a little bit smaller because, well, just because. That's how sometimes they're done on the color wheel. Because they are that third level. Then in between our yellow and orange, we have our yellow-orange, and you also have that colored pencil ready for you to use. Crayola so kindly provides those ones, but Crayola doesn't make all the colors that you would need to do a true color wheel. Then we have our yellow-green. Then we have blue-green. This is where we get where Crayola hasn't provided us with what we need. So that's where we get to start color mixing. So we're going to start with a light layer of the color that we want to make. And I'm going to zoom in here a little bit for you.
That's just one more reason this is the most important sound.
And then I'm going to mix a layer of my green. I apologize for the commercials. I thought this was going to be a station that just kept going. Thank you, Spotify.
We have seen this inequality up close this year, and we now feel the urgency to help and empower all women. JP Morgan Chase's Women's Leadership Day event.
So I'm just going to keep doing this over and over again until I get a nice blue-green solid color. Now I need to do the same thing for my blue-violet. This one's going to be really difficult for you all to see on there. And once again, I apologize. The Elmo, my camera, has never picked up blues and purples very clearly. It's like that with the older models too. It's gotten a little better, but still not significantly. And then our last one is our red violet. So I'm going to mix my red and purple together. Until I get a nice blend of color here. Crayola does make a pencil that's very close to a red violet, and they've called it raspberry, but on our set of 24 that is not included. It used to be, but now they've included mahogany in its place. Alright, so I'm going to set those aside, and we're going to talk about our color theory a little bit more. So we know we have red violet. Once again, I'm going to abbreviate blue violet, blue, oh goodness, blue green, yellow green, yellow orange, and red orange. Okay, so now we're ready to talk about analogous colors. You might have learned about this in elementary school, but I'm not certain, so I'm going to review it because it is a difficult concept for some people. Analogous colors are 3 to 5 colors next to each other on the color wheel. And they typically have one color in common. Now, for our purposes, we're not going to use our primary colors as our common color. That's usually how it's done, but for the DragonEye, we're going to use our secondary color. So I'm going to go from orange all the way to my red and to my yellow. So there's my, see, here's my 5 colors. This is the easiest set to use because of the colored pencils already being made for you, and you don't have to do as much blending and mixing. So that's the one I'm going to be demonstrating with today. Then you have, so we're going to call this one our orange set. Then we have from red all the way to blue, and this is our purple set. And then you have your yellow to blue, which is your green set. Okay, so now that I'm done with this, I'm going to set my sketchbook aside and I'm going to be ready to start drawing my DragonEye. But we're going to do a little practice with our sketchbook first. Or you can use some of the newsprint that is in your art kit for practice. What I'm going to want you to do is to be making a slanted oval shape, think football but not as pointy on the ends, to give us that dragon eye. So I want you to practice making a shape very similar to the one I just made in my sketchbook. Practice making them large. Then once you have the shape that you're really comfortable with, I want you to start by making a curved pupil. And then we would remove this part. So when you go onto your black paper, you want to draw very lightly. Okay, so this is my DragonEye shape. So now I'm officially ready to move my sketchbook out of the way. So as I've stated, I'm going to use the orange set. So I'm going to lay those colors out. I'm going to be working from yellow, yellow, orange. Oops, yellow. I'm making a mess of things today. Yellow, yellow, orange, orange, red, red. And you can just see how those colors fade into each other. very nicely. Okay. I'm going to zoom out here just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Now, for this, I'm going to be using a colored pencil, the white one, to draw this, which is why I wanted you to practice in your sketchbook first. So I'm going to start by making my dragon eye fairly large. Now, because I've done this a good bit, I know approximately where I want my pupil to go, so I'm just not even going to bother to make the line right there. That saves me a lot of erasing. Remember how I said these are curved? We're going to have that nice, ominous dragon eye look. So I'm going to go ahead and get out both of my erasers. This is the little gray eraser that's in your kit. It's called a kneaded eraser because we're going to be using this with the charcoal here shortly. But you knead it or kind of massage it into itself like you would bread dough, and that keeps it clean. And I know it looks like a chewed up piece of gum. Keep this in your art kit. Okay? Don't leave it out somewhere else. Your parents probably pick it up thinking it is chewed gum, and then you'll be in trouble. Alright, once you have your space done, you're going to color in the white area. This is just going to give us a nice base for our colors to pop out of when we start coloring. And yes, I'm going very quickly. I start slow around the outside edges, and then I can go a little faster. You do not want to press hard on this step. I'm gonna have to sharpen my pencil soon. And the easiest thing I've always learned was to turn my paper instead of trying to turn my hand into an awkward position whenever I'm trying to reach funky spaces. And what direction you go here doesn't matter. When we start to add our color, our direction of our lines will matter. It will make your eye either look like it is realistic, or it's going to make it look like my 5-year-old did it. So keep that in mind. Alright, so I'm going to start with my yellow on the inside here. And right now, I'm just going to take that, and I'm not pressing firm, just enough to get color on the paper. And I'm going to go right on the inside where that white is along the pupil. Remember, pupil was the part of the eye that opens and closes like a camera shutter does, or aperture actually, where it gets bigger and smaller depending on how much light there is. I had to throw in a little science for you. Alright, so now I'm going to start making curved lines as if the eye is round. And I want to come out just a little bit with this. And then as I get down towards the bottom, I curve it like it's going towards the bottom. And then I'm going to curve around this way. And then I'm going to slowly work through the different colors, working yellow to red. And I'm going to overlap my yellow a little bit with this yellow-orange. Still working with curved lines. Following the direction. So what we're focused on right now is blending with colored pencil, and we're working in layers. So right now we're starting with our lightest layers and our lightest colors. And we're going to slowly build this up until it gets dark. Now I'm going to come out a little bit further here on top with my orange, because this side is a little bit bigger. I won't need to do quite so much whenever I'm on the other side. And I'm slightly overlapping that yellow-orange. I'm still not pressing very hard. Now I'm going to go to my red-orange. And right now, like I said, I'm just getting a base layer on this. Go over my orange a little bit. Remember, we're always overlapping the color we did before. And if you choose to do a different color, you're more than welcome to. You're just going to have a lot more blending. And the reason we did the white layer first, it just helps our color stand out just a little bit more. Last but not least, I'm going to take my red, to keep it nice and clean. I'm going to do the outside areas there first. Finish with some curved lines there. Overlapping my red-orange. And I can start to go a little firmer because this is the last color I'm adding. We don't want the little black specks of the paper to show through, so we're going to keep layering, going back and forth with our colors until they're gone. But you want to remember what direction you were going in, because you do not want a scratchy looking eyeball of it going all different directions. And for years you've been told to color in a circular motion and going in different directions, and that's great, but for this, direction matters. I could go into more detail, but it took me years to understand that concept of why it's better right now just to do it and follow my expertise. But it's called working with planes, and it's a way to see where things are in space, but not airplanes. So it was a college concept for me, learning about that, and it was really difficult. I used to look at my professor like he was crazy, which granted he could be, but it wasn't easy for me. So now you see I'm going back in with the colors I already did, and I'm building up those layers until I'm losing the little black specks coming through. Now I apologize if this starts to get on the shinier side with the lights, and you might lose some visibility. As we go into the background area where we're going to do some spikes and some scales, you'll be able to see those really easily with the white charcoal. But I'm filling this in. Working with all of those colors. And this is where you can add, like I said, that firmer pressure. Really get in there and make the black of the paper disappear behind here. This would be a really neat project to do in pastel, but the problem with pastel is it does smear, so to leave the background clean, it's not going to be as easy to do, which is why I tried this with the colored pencil. I've done this quite a few years. Some of you got to come to my class whenever you were in 3rd grade, and you got to work with some of my older students, and they helped you make this project. So you have a tinier version, or you did. You might not still have it, I don't know. I personally keep all my own kids' artwork, but I'm a little bit partial, you know, being an art teacher and all. Okay. Work down here on the bottom a little bit. Good thing I'm about done with these colors, because they are going to need sharpened again. Go into my red orange. This is making my hand a little tired. I think my hand's out of shape. Pressing this hard to color. So my suggestion to you all is not to do this all in one sitting. Break it down to about a half an hour a day till you get it done. As always, I'm not going to make the deadline for this super crazy. And there's more commercials. Thank you, Spotify. Alright, so in the past you learned about your complementary colors. So I'm going to flip back over to our color wheel that we were talking about earlier. As a visual, we have our complements. So red to green, they are opposites. So complementary. So they are across from each other on the color wheel. When placed beside each other, they stand out. When they're mixed together, they make a neutral. So then we've got our yellow and purple, and our orange and blue. We are going to use green since the outside of our eye we colored with the red. So this is going to be how we're going to create our shadows, by blending that together. So I'm going to take a regular green pencil, and I'm going to start working that in. Now this I'm going to do in a circular motion, and this is going to give the shadows where the eye starts to recede back into where our dragon scales and skin would be, and up underneath where the lid of the eye would be. I'm going to do that in that top corner, and I'm going to put just a little bit here at the bottom. Now before I move on, I'm going to take that white pencil and I'm going to make a little white speck, like it's reflecting the light. And this is a little harder to do over the colored pencil, but make it work. Alright, now I'm going to add a lid line very neatly and gently all the way around, just like with us. We have that lip right along our eye, and I'm just going to leave that cool, just like that. So now I'm done with my colored pencils. Now you have a blending stump in your kit. And yours are probably dirty from the oil pastels and the other things that we've used it for. Ask your parent to clean it with some form of a knife, and you just shave that off. Notice I said ask your parent. Please do not do this yourself. It isn't the safest thing to do, but is the only way that I know how to do this. So ask your parents. Or if you need an additional one, please reach out to me. Okay, so now I'm ready to start adding some spikes. So I'm going to start with kind of a curved triangle with the white charcoal, not the chalk. This one's got flat sides in your bag. It's in a tiny little sandwich baggie, and there's a piece of chalk, there's a little scratch tool, and then this. So please do not press hard. You will scratch your paper. If this becomes shiny, you can't blend it. So now I'm going to take my blending stump over the charcoal I've already used here. I'm going to blend that in. But I want a variation, as if the highlight of the spike is to my right, as if my sunshine or the light or light source, whatever it is to our right side. So we need to keep that in mind as we do the rest of our spikes. So I'm going to put that right down the middle. I'm going to blend it a little bit, and you just keep layering it till you get the effect that you want. Now I've went out of my lines a little bit, and I actually did that on purpose because I want to show you how to use your kneaded eraser. And some of you may already know how to do it, and that's fantastic. But I'm just going to take it and I'm going to roll it into kind of a point, and I'm going to use that to go in and erase. And the awesome part about a kneaded eraser is it doesn't leave all the residue that a typical eraser does. Now I want some dark sections in here, so I'm going to go back in where this is, and I'm going to add those in with my kneaded eraser because it's a little bit easier that way. And you can see that I'm starting to get that realistic look of if the spikes that we're using here were on an actual dragon. Then I'm just going to continue to make some spikes. All the way back. You can add some that have little pieces that kind of stick down in there. And like I said, don't press hard. Just keep repeating the process. Layers. I know it sounds time consuming, but if you press hard really fast and you get that awful squeaky noise with your charcoal, or even if you press too much with your blending stump, and you can use your finger if you don't want to use the blending stump, you will scratch the paper, and even with erasing, it's going to stay colored, it's going to stay shiny, and it's damaged. I'm just going to keep doing this. And instead of going back each time and using my blending stump right now and my kneaded eraser to clean everything up, I'm just going to expedite the process and make some more. But down at the bottom, there will be a row of spikes that curve this way. Maybe a little bit smaller. You could even have them staggered. Notice how I take them off the page because of where I'm at. Right in between that, I'm going to start making some curved lines that are staggered. And these are going to be scales, little tiny scales, right underneath the eye where if you've ever seen somebody with dark circles that hasn't been sleeping well, in that space underneath the eye. You don't want to get too crazy with these. You just want enough fill the page. Now see, my hand's blending over this, which is why I said I'm not going to get too worried about having my kneaded eraser handy. So I'm just going to take this and go in there and give me some layers. So I can always, because I'm drawing lightly, I can always go back in and clean this up. Now down here, it's still going to be towards the right. For my highlight. Now, if for some reason this feels sharp whenever you go to use it on your paper and it's acting like it's scratching, break it in half. There might be a hard spot in that piece of pastel, or not pastel, excuse me, charcoal. And I prefer to use white charcoal over black charcoal. Black charcoal and I do not get along very well. Alright, so then with these, I'm just going to take these and kind of add like a triangular shape, and then use that kneaded eraser to go back in and clean it up, just to give the depth of having something here. Okay, so I can't wait to see yours. I will post a picture of this one whenever I get it finished. Can't wait to see yours done.